Good morning and welcome to Felixstowe TV at the Gainsborough studio. We are into another episode of This Is Your Life, Young Eric. Before we do that, let me just show you this rather nice, I need to see that wonderful screen. This is a wreath that we had made up to commemorate the gift of the Bartlett Convalescent Home, which last Wednesday entered its 88th year of it being given to us. And the connection between that 88th year is young Eric here is 88, as is the Queen, as is Sir David Attenborough. So they're all in very good company. And I would say the three individuals are more than fit for purpose, and a number of us still feel that the Bartlett Convalescent Home could have been fit for purpose. So on that probably provocative note, let's dive straight into This Is Your Life. Good morning, young Eric.
Hello to you, young
and
man.
Bella, the killer. How you doing, Bella?
Yes.
Right, Eric, I think we were Bembridge.
Bembridge, the training ship Bembridge.
Yes.
Now, this was a wonderful period of my life, of course, because you don't often get the possibility of owning a full-size ship.
No, you don't.
And of course, we had it, just to summarise very quickly, because I told you about it and what we did with it.
Yep.
We had how shall I say, boys with a lot of problems.
Interesting.
From all over the country. We had a lot of problems with it.
Yeah.
But it was Trinity House's #1 vessel,
Indeed.
built in 1938, and it was a historic vessel, and is a historic vessel, because not only was it their #1 vessel, but it was the vessel in which the Trinity House seniors, I can't remember what they're called, but they go round all the lighthouses every year in it. Prince Philip was, or possibly still is, involved with it. And of course, when they had the NATO procession coming from Portsmouth, the naval one, all the naval vessels, and what's it, who led the procession? The Bembridge, number one vessel. And of course, Her Majesty the Queen and Prince Philip were aboard her. And so
so she has a very distinguished career and a very distinguished position in
absolutely
all things sailing.
We took her one step further, because with us she was involved with the nuclear submarines.
Indeed,
and they were just starting, and we went up and serviced the nuclear submarines at Loch Finn in Scotland.
And all of that,
and which we had a marvellous time, and the boys did sterling service. Indeed. And it just shows what can be done if the boys are given the opportunity and the scope to do something where they can learn. The boys have gone all over the world and done very well for themselves.
Good.
But one of the problems, of course, from our point of view, was that the men who could run a vessel weren't capable of dealing with these difficult boys. Right. And the people who could deal with the difficult boys weren't capable of running a vessel.
That's the problem.
We had, I can't remember, but a couple of years, I think, and we served her time. She served her time with us, but then we discovered that this supervision problem was really insurmountable. Right. It was really very difficult. It was the ideal situation, because if the boys misbehaved, as they frequently did, and they fell out with the people of the town,
off you go.
Off we go to the next town,
and upset them for a little while.
Oh, no. They were very good. They were very good. So
the
point was they have a focus. But at that point, we decided that we must get rid of her.
Okay.
And so the North Sea Oil was just starting up. So there she started yet another chapter of her life, because we had two men I saw them coming up the gangplank, and it shows you how you should never judge people by their appearance. I saw these two shabby men coming up the gangplank. I thought, these are real time wasters, but I thought, no, I must treat them. So I put the red carpet down for them and showed them round very well, and of course they bought her for the North Sea Oil.
Obviously at a reasonable price.
At a reasonable price. Right. And it was a fair price at the time. And they wanted to take her straight round to the North Sea. Right. So fortunately my engineer was willing to go with them, and so that solved me having to find a job for him. And they also gave a job to a couple of our boys.
Right, but I believe your engineer was a Scottish gentleman.
He was a Scottish gentleman.
So he was going back to home
Well, I
waters in
suppose he
Aberdeen.
was. But anyway,
well done.
so they sailed off, went round, and they converted her and changed her, and she did a number of years of yeoman service.
Yeah.
After that, of course, when she'd fulfilled her needs, she was bought, strangely enough, by the Burnham-on-Crouch Yacht Club.
That's Essex.
It's Essex.
Right.
And they brought her down
Oh.
and rebuilt her all out as a yacht club premises,
Oh, what? The clubhouse type
as a
thing?
clubhouse, a
Did they
huge
really?
clubhouse.
Ideal.
Ideal. And they
Yeah.
moored her off Burnham-on-Crouch.
Right.
I don't know, I never went to see her, but this is all I've heard.
Yeah.
And so she did yeoman service there for 30 years. So this wonderful old girl,
Yeah.
she'd served Her Majesty, she'd served her country, she'd been a sea training school, she'd done so
She's
much.
done a lot for a ship.
And
yeah.
involved with the North Sea oil, involved with nuclear submarines.
Yeah, quite
She'd done an
amazing.
amazing history.
Yeah.
And there just shows you how there's a plan for everything.
Mm.
She was put up for sale by the Yacht Club after 30 years.
So they
Just-
couldn't afford to.
Well, I don't know. I don't know all the ins and outs
No.
of it, but I know she was put up for sale for scrap.
Oh,
Now, this is where it shows you there's a plan in everything.
Okay.
Because there was this Polish shipyard, heard about it, and the head of the shipyard came over and bought her,
Really?
and he realised her history, and, so she was a historic vessel, so with great difficulty he towed her from Burnham-on-Crouch over to Poland,
All right.
and there, over the last 3 years, he has investigated her history. He has refurbished her completely. She's now a museum and offices for his shipping company.
Super.
And she is now being displayed as the historic vessel that she is. And, it's a wonderful history, really.
Well, thank you, Poland. And
And
thank you, the Poles.
And RAF. Now, if
Yeah.
anybody wants to, and I know about it because, of course, he, through some of our sea boys, apparently,
Right.
he found my son,
Right.
who you remember used to do all the catering
Yes, sir.
aboard and teach the boys catering, because we used to teach the boys catering, seamanship, and engineering.
They should
The
really be
three.
able to look after themselves for the rest of their lives.
Well, a lot of them went over to shipping companies, and they've had good lives as
Yeah.
a result of this wonderful old vessel.
Yeah.
But anybody who's interested in the Bembridge, now all they've got to do is to Google Bembridge,
Right.
and up will come this Polish site for them, so they can read all about the Bembridge. And I haven't seen very much of the site myself. I mean to do it. I always mean to.
Well,
got
I know there's
intention.
too many ambitions, not enough time.
But apparently it gives the whole history of the Bembridge, and he's done a marvellous work. He's investigated it, and he's found different
Really?
pilots who've used her in the past and were boarded on her, and it's
It-
remarkable what
actually,
he's
it
done.
would make a superb story of a vessel,
Oh,
wouldn't it?
it's a superb
When you
story,
consider the
superb story.
spread of its activities and its longevity.
Unbelievable. And of course, the period she was with us, and this is something that Raf doesn't know about, this is the man in
Oh, right.
question, is that while she was with us, she was registered as a yacht.
Right.
You see, you have to have a vessel out at sea. It's got to be registered either as a trading vessel or whatever it is.
Yes.
And so at that time, there wasn't a category for sea training school ships.
No.
So I registered her as a yacht. And I've still got a copy of the yacht registrations. And there she is listed as probably one of the largest yachts ever.
Isn't that good?
But, and that's still in existence. I've still
I mean,
got that.
one would assume that the RAF, you say his name
His name is Raf, yes, first name.
In that Poland still has a high level of very, very well trained engineers
Yes,
and their
yes,
shipyards
yes.
were, as a lot of them do,
Yeah.
have lots of skills. They would have had the requisite skills
Oh,
that would have
yes.
been afforded
Yes,
above
yes.
to put the whole
She
thing
put it
back into use.
apparently it's immaculate at the
Oh,
moment.
I bet.
I'm longing. I've been invited to go
You
over
must
there,
go, Eric.
and I want to go over there and see it because it'll be a historic moment.
What they could do, of course, is sail across here, pick you up,
Oh,
and sail back.
no, I think that would be asking a bit too
It
much.
might, but then they could go down to, it's Falmouth now, isn't it, where we've got the National Collection of Historic Ships.
Yes, yes.
They could have a little courtesy
Yes,
call
but you
there.
see, I think the engines were taken out when she was
well, that
when
give
the
them the
Burnham on
space,
Crouch.
I suppose.
Yes,
wouldn't it?
so
Yeah.
but I mean they had wonderful engines,
Yeah.
and they were taken out when she was in the yacht club.
But we do need sort of these significant and one-offs, don't we?
Yes.
It's a little like when we walk along the prom and we see some of those cars, well, of your child,
Well,
of my
that's
child,
right, yeah.
and it takes you back, and you
Of
look at
course
it and
it
you
does.
think, what a wonderful creation. You know,
Yeah,
you look at
yeah,
an E-Type
yeah.
and you think that's virtually a work of art.
Yeah.
It
But
is.
the thing is, here we've got a wonderful vessel, a historic vessel, and the joy is that she has been restored and she's still available to everybody. So I recommend
So
people
do that.
to get in touch with the
So what
Google,
we do,
Google
Yeah.
Benbridge and have a look at it.
so what we really need to do, and the editor can undoubtedly do this, is put a link on this program to it,
That
and
would
a
be
little,
a very
a
good
little
idea.
taster.
We must try and do that.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea.
Okay,
But
so here we are. We've dealt with your disposal of the vessel to a couple of very unlikely lads who proved to be quite good.
That's right.
And then you return to Arundel.
Well, I've been at Arundel all the time. Of
Yes.
course, I've been going backwards and forwards. And
But-
this
but-
was- had I been able to be aboard the vessel the whole time, we
Yeah.
would have kept her. But it was I had to have officers because I still had my large house and
Yeah.
big family, and I mean they were all growing up and leaving home and getting married, and this was why we started the sea training
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
But at the same time, I still had a big establishment to support, and I was, how do I do it, you know? But I was still doing my inventions,
Good.
and which were very successful, some of them. And of course, I was also starting to get interested in television. And this is
Early
direct,
days.
direct link. It was the BBC were black and white,
Yeah.
and my father had one of the first televisions. In fact, we saw our present Queen's coronation on television.
Yes, that was a big
and
drive, wasn't it?
It was one of the few televisions in the street, in fact, that had television. People came in
Right.
far and wide to have a look at our television set.
Those.
But coming back to Arundel Priory, we had a chapel there because it had been a convent for 100 years. It had 70 rooms. It was a large property. And so in the chapel, I set up a film camera, and I thought, well, I want to get involved with this new television
Right.
thing. And so I set up a film camera, and I filmed myself talking about my inventions.
One of the first
And-
selfies.
Absolutely. And I sent it to the BBC.
Oh,
Now,
right.
they were kind enough to invite me down to Southampton
Right.
to help to present a series of programs called Pure Invention.
Oh, magic. Well, pure
invention,
invention,
yes.
yeah.
Not magic,
No,
pure
I mean
invention.
magic in today's
Yeah.
terms, but good news.
Pure invention. And of course, this I loved doing, and it was very successful. It was a series which was the forerunner. This was in black and white, of course. It was the forerunner to Tomorrow's World.
Yes, I can see that.
There was a little bit of scripting to it, but it was all done live to the camera, and it was amazing.
So we
I
have
always-
no record of these.
No, I don't think. I don't think
copies.
there was no recordings done of it at all. And you see, the same thing applies because at that period, I think we covered where I knocked 5 hotels into one,
Yes,
and made
yes.
the Shoreline Club and Caribbean Hotel. The BBC were the first people to have all-night raves because
Yes,
we
you
gave
said.
these youngsters the things they wanted, but
Yeah.
under proper supervision.
Yeah.
And the BBC sent cameras down and stayed with us all night for an all-night rave.
Oh, right.
And they had it all night,
Yeah.
and it won a prize. And they sent it out all over the world, copies of
Oh.
it, of this
Yes.
all-night thing. But there again, I don't know whether any of these exist still.
Well, we
so
can
it's-
put out an appeal via Felixstowe TV. If you've got a record of a rave in Bognor Regis in the
Let us know.
60s, give us a copy. Thank you very much. And we go back.
Yes. So there was, you know, as I say, but the last program of this series of Pure Invention, they said, we want to do something different. The director discussed it with me,
Oh,
and
right.
he said, I'd like to do something different for the last program. And I said, well, I've got something which nobody else has seen. And
Right.
I said, this is a radium bottle. Now, in 1903, I think it was,
Yes.
Madame Curie
Did the separation.
found the radium, and this was a product which had been made, it was like a pad,
Right.
and it contained an enormous, I think it's 2% radium or something ridiculous.
Right.
And so I said to the director, I said, get a Geiger counter, borrow a Geiger counter, and we'll produce it on television and run the Geiger counter over it. Now, I had got it because a nun of a nearby convent where we sent the children to school, the head one, I've got a name for
Mother
her,
Superior.
Mother Superior. She called me in one day and she said, this has been left in a will to one of our sisters, and we're worried about
I
it with
bet
radium.
you'd be.
And she said, would you like it? And I said, yes. She said, you know, I had an inventive mind and I was into these things.
Right.
And I used it all the time. And my mother-in-law used it all the time, had aches and pains and everything. We'd always use it, found it very, very advantageous.
And
It
you're
was
only
wonderful.
88.
I'm only 88. But so we had brought this out,
Right.
and the director very cleverly brought a doctor along and different experts. So we put this thing on the table, ran the Geiger counter over it with an expert doing it, and the thing went mad. It went bzzz, all over the place.
Yeah.
And the doctor next to me jumped up and
Did a runner.
So they removed the radium bottle, and he came back. And I said, well, why did you go like that? And because don't forget, this was live.
Yeah, well, yes, quite.
Why did you go like that? And he said, well, that amount of radiation in a hospital would need, I don't know how much shielding.
Lots of lead.
And he
'cause
said,
that's what it
you'd
did,
have a
didn't it?
room
Lead
full of
shielding.
it, you know. And so I said, well, what would it do to you? What harm can it do to you? He said, it'll make you infertile.
Oh, right.
And I said, but I've used it all for years, and I've had 9 children.
Oh, right.
So he rather took the wind out of his sails. But we ended that programme on that note.
Oh, I
so
love it.
it was rather sweet, I thought. But coming back to the television again, I did a number of different things at that time. I was involved with an organisation called the Interval Club in Dean Street in London.
Oh, right.
And this was an organisation which was started by Molly Hewitt, a wonderful old lady, and her mother. And you see, after the war, when the variety started coming back, and the youngsters were coming from all over England, wanting to be on the stage and take up the careers. And of course, they'd come to London and they were stranded. So she had this idea. She got this huge premises in Dean Street in Soho. Made it all bedrooms,
Right.
and there was a theatre in it as well, so it shows the size of it.
Yes.
And she had mainly girls, boys, everybody, you know. They'd come, they'd stay there, and they'd have somewhere, a safe haven.
Safe,
which
isn't
didn't
it? It
cost,
is a safety.
It didn't cost them a fortune. She was
No.
very economical with it. And I became involved with it, and in fact I ended up as, I think, a director for it. The other director was the owner of Stage magazine, and there was another director was one of the churches, I think the Catholic Church, one of them. But did sterling work, and of course I was involved with that, and so I was very interested in that.
So would this have been the time when we had a lot of service personnel returning to try to cut their teeth as comedians
Absolutely.
at the windmill and all that sort of
well,
thing?
the windmill went right through the war.
It did. We never closed.
No, never closed.
I thought
never
that was
closed.
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And of course, in those days, it was a tremendous thing. They couldn't move if they were in
That's
the
right.
nude or semi-nude,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and it was a marvelous.
But I mean, some of our finest comics came through that.
Absolutely.
That hard learning
because
curve, didn't it?
Well, it wasn't a hard learning curve. It was an impossible curve.
Exactly.
Because the people who went there, they went there to see the.
That's right.
The best.
No interest in the comedy.
They weren't in it. So if the comedians were able to secure them, they were good. They were really good.
I can imagine that must be quite demoralising.
But no, I did a lot with it, and I mean, we used to do acts. There was, I think it's still there. There's a nursing home for retired actors and actresses.
Yes, there is.
We used
A
to
number
go.
of care homes.
We used to go and do shows for them, and it's fascinating, you know.
It
and I
is.
met a lot of interesting people.
And that's ongoing, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
You
is
know, because I
ongoing.
think
But
not every actor is making a
yes.
fortune.
No, but the Interval Club, as I say, it finished its days, unfortunately, because Molly Hewitt had done it and started it. Her mother had started it. But it just shows you sometimes committees aren't ideal, because I was outvoted and Molly was outvoted by the... other directors
Really?
because they thought that it was should be closed down, and it closed because of it. And Molly didn't last very long afterwards because it was her whole life.
Oh,
so it was
dear.
very sad.
Yeah.
But I've still got some money which I want to put and make a little memorial for her. And in fact, a month ago I went up to Dean Street.
A little blue plaque.
There's a little theatre there now in Dean Street, and I saw a show in it, and I could swear it was the same theatre that was there, but I don't know. This is my imagination, very fertile imagination.
Great.
But as I say, I continued with my magic. Did I tell you about Richard Green?
Well, you were saying that having had a little run out with the BBC, ITV then came into production.
That's right.
And I understood that you went now. Did you do a selfie for them as well, or did
No,
you just turn up?
No. My agent booked me.
Agent?
And you see, they were doing the first series of Robin Hood with
Yes.
Richard Green on the television, and my agent booked me and he charged them £100, which was a lot of money in those days.
Indeed.
And they said, no, we can't afford £100 just for somebody to come in and do a bit of fire eating and what have you. But they got somebody else and he made a mess of it, so they had to pay out for me.
Twice.
And so I went down there.
So you were what, with the sheriff, or?
No, I had a mask on. I took the place of one of Robin Hood's men, and we went with Robin Hood and Little John. We went to entertain the sheriff in the castle and extract one of his prisoners.
So
that
you
was
were the
whole
flanking
thing.
movement.
So I was the person who did the entertainment for the sheriff, and I did fire eating, and then of course I'd always recall it. You know, Little John. I can't remember his name. He was a wonderful actor. He was a big lad.
Yeah, he was.
I had a bowl, which first of all it turned into. Excuse me. This proves we're live because
yes,
it's.
Does a bit.
I'm sorry about this.
No, this could well be the premium bomb announcement.
No, there we are. I'm sorry. It proves we're doing this live, doesn't it? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Where was I?
You were talking to
with
Little John.
Little John. I had a
Who was
bowl.
very
I had
big.
a bowl,
Yeah.
which first of all I did like this, and it went into flowers. Sorry, it went into flames.
Oh, right.
And then he did it again, and it went into flowers. All he had to do was to press a couple of buttons.
Right.
When I did that, but you know that man. When I did that, he either pressed the button too soon or he pressed the button too late, and it took us 10 takes to get this scene.
Oh dear.
But the joy of it was that 4 or 5 years ago, I got a cheque for £50 from Sky. They'd done a repeat programme of it. They'd repeated it, and I got a repeat.
So you're getting repeat fees?
I got repeat fees.
Look, can we ask our worldwide audience, would you please insist that your broadcasting company looks to find this piece of film so we can keep Eric in the manner to which he's grown accustomed? We need repeat fees from around the planet, don't we?
Oh,
really?
absolutely.
But that's brilliant. That really is. Yeah.
And of course, when ITV started up, my agent once again, did I tell you about the, I don't think I have.
Right.
My agent got me a job with that. The ITV started up in a cinema near Earl's Court, as you go towards Earl's,
Yep.
you know, Olympia,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not Earl's Court, Olympia.
Right.
There's a railway line across the road, and there was a cinema on this side of the road, and that's where they started.
Did they really?
And I thought, well, this is a new
outfit?
place starting up. I must do something very special for them. So I spent the whole night beforehand preparing this. I had an assistant in those days. She later became one of the leading broadcasters in Canada, my assistant did. But that's
Magic.
part of the history. But so we spent the whole night rehearsing it and getting it done. And what it was, I had an old loudspeaker cone,
Right.
and I put this over her head,
Right.
poured petrol in it, set fire to it.
In the studio?
In the
pub,
studio.
right.
In those days you could do those
I was
sort
trying
of
to
things.
think, yeah.
And I had a frying pan, put it over the flames, broke an egg into it, and fried the egg on it, just to prove that it was the heat was there.
Oh, brilliant.
I'm not going to tell you how it was
No,
done.
don't,
It was
I
pure,
shan't.
pure trickery, I can promise
Yeah.
you. And then I was able to take it off, and there she was. She did her bow, and that was that. It's never been done since, and unfortunately it wasn't recorded, but it would be lovely to have had
Wouldn't
that.
that
so I'd
be?
say. I could reproduce
Who
it. I suppose.
ate the egg?
Oh no, I don't remember what happened to the
It just
egg.
disappeared.
But
Right.
at any rate, so you know, I was doing these different things which all came together. They were all about the same period, and it was a wonderful period
You must have
because
been very, very busy.
I was busy.
Yeah.
I was always busy.
And your agent obviously was effective. He earned his 10%, 20%,
Well,
30%,
yes.
whatever.
Well, I can't
you
remember
know,
what
I
it
mean,
was now.
Some of them
But
took
I was going to put on my own show called the Foti Show.
Oh, right.
And in fact, I had a contract with Moscow, and but due to various family circumstances, we didn't go ahead with it. And I went off the away from the theatre, so I didn't do so much after that.
So really, at the time you're talking about, the end of the Pier Show and Rep was still pretty strong.
Oh, Variety
all
was still going,
over the country.
It was going strong, but then of course there was the decline of Variety.
Oh, yes, it did.
And where they went wrong was, of course, Variety was a family thing. People used to go, and of course the television, the growth of television cut down on the variety. You see, in those days, a man could have an act, a 7-minute act, and he would last his whole working life with that one act.
Yes.
And it was, I think it was 140 theatres. It took you a year to go around the full circuit.
That was a done job.
And but it's such a shame, you know, because then the theatres went over to, how shall I say, sexy shows, and that alienated the family audience, and then of course they started turning them into bingo halls and into.
But I mean, I remember the last time I went to see Joe Pasquale. He was doing some tryout stuff in the Spa Theatre.
Was he? Yes.
And I think that was before his television series. And what he did, he worked it up in the theatre.
Yeah.
And then he did some tours around, where he always got a good response. He's a very good impressionist, whatever. But he was saying, I think I read an interview, the appetite and the consumption of what is being done, as you were saying, your act could carry you at least for a couple of years.
A couple of years. They used to do it all their lives. They used to do it all their lives. One act all throughout their lives.
But now
40
it's
years
just
life.
one single evening, and then they've got to do it again.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and a number of very good writers must be. It's an acquired art, isn't it? The writer for the comedian for whatever. Yeah. So yeah, we are very, very hungry to be entertained.
Yes. Well, television is rather like a bucket with holes in it. You fill it up and it's gone, and you have to keep filling it.
There's a song like that.
Well, that's right. But this is one of the reasons why Felixstowe Television is fulfilling a good local need, because we not only have the shows, but we are training people. And sometimes the quality isn't quite as good as it should be.
No, but the
never
experience
mind,
and the
it's giving the
exposure.
experience to people, and we've got people who started off with no knowledge at all, and
true.
Today they're experts.
Well,
all because of Felixstowe Television.
Well, there's me, and there's Bella. Bella's now could be, if she would wake up, she could be a wonderful.
But we're still looking for volunteers.
Yes, we
and
are.
Unfortunately, they're coming in fast and furiously, and hopefully now we're going to get more volunteers, and we're going to relaunch Felixstowe Television as a new feature, and it's going to be tomorrow's local paper. That's really what
I like that. Now, we've got a couple of minutes, and let's deal with not your life as was, but as is now, because you, I believe, visited for the first time the Suffolk Showground whenever you went.
I went on Wednesday.
And how did you find it?
I found it marvellous. Well, I love these. Of course, you're a youngster. You don't remember all these old county shows. But this was the big. This was the annual feature for all farmers. The farmers used to go to these shows. Yeah. The main thing was to see the equipment, to show off the animals, and they could find the, display their animals. Yeah. And of course, the Suffolk show in here
still does that.
It does that. Absolutely amazing. There was all the wonderful old farming machinery,
yes,
new farming machinery. Some of the size of it today is unbelievable. Yeah. And of course, the Suffolk punches.
Beautiful.
And just to finish on a good note, do you know how the Suffolk punch gets its name?
No.
There was in those days, in Victorian days, punch was made in a puncheon, which was a 90-gallon container.
Oh, right.
And a Suffolk punch was as big as a puncheon. And we made Norfolk punch, which we'll be coming to later on in my time. And that Norfolk punch was made in a puncheon. So there we finished.
There's a connection. Well, that's lovely. All I was going to say, the thing that I thought was superb, and the children absolutely loved it, was the hatchery. I don't know whether you saw
Oh,
that.
I did that.
But they
Held
had
one
the
of
ducks and the
yeah,
chicks.
and they were
and
you
you
held
couldn't
them
get
in
in there.
You held them in your hand.
That's right,
Yes.
and they loved it.
Yes, I
So
took a photograph
well
of
done to Suffolk Agricultural Association. Thank you very much for joining us today or in the future, and join us again hopefully next week for yet another episode in the never-ending This Is Your Life with Eric. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.